With regard to publications and book reviews, iconography is actually the easiest of the three subjects of art history, iconography, and religious context. Iconography is more to the point. It is just simply descriptive, and we have very early texts in Sanskrit and Prakrit, in Newar, in Tibetan, and also in Chinese translation, some translations which didn't make it to Tibet but went from Sanskrit to Chinese language. But in the English language, we have a number of essential iconography and iconographic texts. And in terms of general, there are three essential texts. Two of these can have two versions, so we'll talk about that at a later date. But the first is Buddhist Iconography, compact edition by Lokesh Chandra, published out of the International Academy of Indian Culture. And I don't know when the first print run was done, but the second, I think the second reprint was 1999. Now there's another version of this that is published as Deities of Tibetan Buddhism, and that's done by Wisdom Publications. But that's not the one I recommend to start with. I recommend the other because it's also readily available, not very expensive, and full of excellent information. What it is, actually, it's a publication of woodblock cuts of all of the deities from the Rinjung Lentop of, I think it's the fourth Panchen Lama, and that is completely 98% based on the Jonang Taranata's earlier text of the early 17th century called the Rinjung Jatsa. And it has 200-300 different deities with descriptions and images. So another version of that was published by Wisdom, but that book is quite expensive, but we will talk about it in the future. Then we have Tibetan Mandalas, the Vajravali and the Tantra Samuchaya, and this is by Raghuvira and Lokesh Chandra again, and that was published, I think the second time it was published was 95 out of New Delhi. And this publication deals with one Indian collection of mandalas from the 11th century, and then a Tibetan collection of mandalas from the 19th century. And they're both essential because the majority of artworks, murals and painting that you will find that relate to mandalas in Himalayan art are coming out of either the Vajravali or the Tantra Samuchaya. So it's an absolutely essential study. And there is another version of this as well, which is harder to get, but coming out of Japan and done by Tartse Ken Rinpoche. And that would have been in the, that would have been in, had to be in the 70s. It had to be in the early 70s when that was done. Now, the third book is Buddhist Symbols in Tibetan Culture, and it's really an investigation and a look into the 9 best-known groups of symbols, like the 8 auspicious symbols, the 8 bringers of good fortune, 7 jewels of royalty. And this text is by an author we've already talked about, Loden Sherab Dakyap. Published by Wisdom, and that was in 1995. This is an essential book, and the reason is because Dakyap Rinpoche is so well educated, so everything he is saying is absolutely accurate and true to the historical texts and documents and Tibetan understanding of the Indian symbols. So these are the 3 books: Buddhist Iconography by Lokesh Chandra, Tibetan Mandalas by Lokesh Chandra and his father-in-law Raghuvira, and then Buddhist Symbols, again by Loden Sherab Dakyap. These 3 are essential, and then there are many, many more that are more specialized, but we will get to those in due course. So you can press the like button, you can subscribe, and you can also help support what we do by becoming a patron on Patreon, on Patreon.